My stepdaughter cut me from her wedding guest list after I covered all the costs, so I told her to move out. What happened afterward surprised everyone. My stepdaughter Sarah is getting married on August 3rd. Wedding planning has taken over her and her mother's lives for months. Every conversation, every spare moment, it's all wedding talk. I say her mom because even though we've lived together for about 10 years, we never married. And honestly, after everything that unfolded, I'm thankful we didn't. Back to Sarah. She graduated from university last December. Tuition I paid for. It was a state school, not Ivy League level costs, but still, $40,000 isn't nothing. And college wasn't the only thing I helped with. I also bought her a car so she could commute. She lived with us throughout school and even after graduating. Still no job. She stays home while planning her wedding. Now let me tell you about her biological father, David. Complete absentee parent. He drifts in and out whenever it suits him. Never contributed to her education. Didn't pay child support. Not once. Yet Sarah treats him like he's some kind of hero. Every time he reappears, it's dad this, dad that, like he's a model parent. Meanwhile, I'm the one paying for everything and supporting her in every way. It's frustrating, but honestly, I've always blamed Lisa, my girlfriend, for enabling it. She never pushed for child support and always made sure David stayed involved, even when he vanished for months and repeatedly let Sarah down. Fast forward to the wedding planning. The venue holds around 250 people, which sounds big, but once you account for both families and friends, it fills quickly. Since I was covering most of the expenses, I figured I should at least get to invite a small number of guests. I wasn't asking for much, just 20 people, close friends and a couple of relatives who have been part of my life for years. Lisa said, "Sure, no problem, we'll add them." So, I assumed everything was fine. That's when things started going wrong. One Saturday, I'm golfing with my friend Jake, one of the 20 people on my list. Casual conversation. I ask if he's coming, and he gives me a strange look. "No invite," he says, "just an announcement." I ask what he means, and he goes to his car, digs through a pile of old mail, and pulls out the envelope. Sure enough, it's only a wedding announcement, not an invitation. And guess whose name is missing? Mine. David's name is there, Lisa's name is there, but nowhere on that card am I mentioned, the person paying for the entire wedding. I could feel my blood pressure spike. I kept calm on the outside, but I was angry. Later at home, I confronted Lisa. Her explanation? Well, the venue only fits 250, and we had to cut some people. Seriously? My 20 guests were cut. I'm financing most of this event, and I don't get space for even a small group of people important to me. I couldn't believe it. She kept trying to justify it, saying that if some people didn't RSVP, maybe a few of my guests could be added later. At that point, I was already thinking about pulling out entirely. I mean, if they couldn't bother to include me properly, why should I keep paying? But the real turning point came the next day. Sunday dinner at Sarah's fiancé's parents' house. A normal family dinner, or so I thought. Guess who's at the table? David. We sit down, and halfway through the meal, Sarah announces, with a big smile, how excited she is that David will be at the wedding. And not only that, he'll be the one walking her down the aisle. The whole room cheers. Her fiancé's family claps. David beams, and I sit there feeling like someone punched me in the stomach. I've supported her for 10 years, and now the man who abandoned her gets the honor of giving her away. I felt completely disrespected. I didn't know whether to get up and leave or say something. So I stood and raised my glass. Everyone fell silent. I don't remember every word, but the message was clear. It's been a privilege being part of this family for the past decade, but today, Sarah and her fiancé showed me something important. I thought I mattered here, but now I understand I'm just the person who covers the bills. Since David is apparently the important one, I'll no longer be financing this wedding. He can handle it from now on. Shock spread across the table. David looked embarrassed. Sarah stared at me wide-eyed, and Lisa looked stunned. I finished my drink, set down the glass, and said, "You can all see yourselves out." And that was it. I was done with the wedding, with Sarah, and with Lisa. That night, I moved all the money out of our joint account and started calling vendors the next morning. I wasn't going to pay for a wedding I was essentially excluded from. After that dinner, I didn't hesitate. I transferred everything from the joint account. I knew it would hit Lisa hard because she hasn't worked in years. She's relied on me to pay every bill, every grocery run, everything. And now she wanted to treat me like an outsider so David could look good? No. I started with the vendors. The photographer had a deposit from me, but when I called, he was understanding and refunded most of it, keeping only a small fee. Fine by me. Better to lose a little than fund a wedding I wasn't welcome at. Next was the caterer. I expected trouble since catering companies can be strict with refunds. But I got lucky again. They had a waiting list for my date, so they refunded me completely without hesitation. At that point, I felt confident in my decision. Everything was lining up. The only real loss was the venue. They kept $1,500 of the deposit, which I expected. But compared to paying for an entire wedding where I wasn't even acknowledged, losing that amount felt minor. It sucked, sure. But considering I was about to spend $450,000 on the wedding, it felt like a small fee to escape the whole mess. I won't lie, part of me was waiting for the fallout. I knew Lisa wouldn't handle it well, so I braced myself for the blow-up. But surprisingly, she didn't say a word that night. Not one. I slept in the guest room, expecting her to knock, maybe cry, maybe yell, but nothing. Silence. Honestly, that silence was worse than any argument. It felt like she had just checked out completely, like she didn't care enough to fight for us or even acknowledge what was happening. The next morning, everything finally boiled over. I was at the kitchen table drinking my coffee when Lisa walked in, holding Sarah's wedding planner. She set it down in front of me like it was evidence in some investigation. I didn't speak. I just waited for whatever speech she had prepared. "You're ruining everything," she said finally. Her tone wasn't angry, just flat and defeated. I took a breath. "I'm not ruining anything, Lisa. You and Sarah made your decisions. I'm just responding to them." She flipped through the planner, showing me their choices. The flowers, decor, music, all of it. I barely paid attention. I was checked out. But one thing grabbed my attention. An entire section dedicated to the father-daughter dance. And every single song was picked for David, not me. That was the final straw. I actually laughed. It was so ridiculous. I wasn't even considered at that point. I was just the funding source. "Look," I said, sliding the planner back to her, "you and Sarah need to move out. I'm done paying for this wedding, and I'm done pretending we're still a family. Stay with her fiancé's family or find somewhere else, but you're not staying here." She didn't argue. She just picked up the planner and left the room. I sat there for a while, drinking my coffee, thinking about everything. 10 years, gone just like that. It's wild how fast things fall apart once people show you their true colors. A few days passed without much happening. Lisa didn't attempt to talk to me, and Sarah wouldn't even look at me. We were basically strangers sharing a house. Then one morning, I woke up to find them packing. I didn't ask where they planned to go. I didn't care. Just wanted them out. I'll admit, it was tempting to be petty while they packed. Part of me wanted to toss some of their things out of spite, but I held back. I didn't want to sink to their level. Besides, I'd already made my point when I cut off the money. Lisa kept shooting me dirty looks, and Sarah refused to make eye contact. Fine. I didn't want to see her face anyway. They left that afternoon. No goodbyes, no final conversation, just silence. When I locked the door behind them, it felt like a weight had been lifted. The house finally felt like mine again. That night, I changed the locks. Call it paranoia, but I wasn't taking chances. After everything, I didn't trust them not to try something. With the new locks, I finally felt like I had some control again. I sat on the couch that night, cracked open a beer, and relaxed. It was strange. I hadn't felt that calm in months. No more wedding pressure. No more dealing with Sarah's entitled behavior. No more tiptoeing around Lisa. I felt free. A week later, I heard through the grapevine that they were trying to scale down the wedding. Supposedly, the fiancé's parents stepped in to help pay, though they weren't thrilled about it. I guess Lisa burned a few bridges along the way. And apparently, she even tried to write herself a check from our joint account the day after everything blew up. Too bad for her. I'd already moved the money. Nice try. I'm not saying I'm happy with how things ended, but honestly, I feel a lot better than I did before. I wasted too much time and money on people who never appreciated it. It's amazing how clear everything looks. Looking once back, you step back. I should have noticed the signs. Sarah always favored her biological dad, and Lisa never stepped in. I should have known. I was just the one covering expenses, nothing more. But hey, lesson learned. Now I get to move forward without their nonsense pulling me down. So that's where things stand. The house is quiet. I've got my peace back, and I'm done with their drama. If I hear anything new about the wedding, I'll update you, but I'm not going out of my way to find out. Let them deal with their situation. I'm just glad I'm out. After Lisa and Sarah left, the quiet really settled in. 10 years of noise and chaos, and suddenly it was just me. At first it felt strange, but honestly it was peaceful. No wedding issues, no attitude from Sarah, no guilt-tripping from Lisa, just silence. Then came the aftermath, the part I didn't expect. Once everything calmed down, I started getting calls. Not from Lisa or Sarah. They kept their distance. But from people who'd heard I pulled the plug on the wedding. Drama spreads fast. The first call was from Lisa's friend, Maggie. She's always been the nosy type, constantly in everyone's business. She called acting concerned. I heard what happened. Are you okay? Let me be clear. Maggie isn't my friend. She's always taken Lisa's side in every disagreement. So I knew she wasn't checking in. She wanted gossip. Maggie, I'm fine, I told her. It is what it is. Sarah and Lisa made their decisions, and I made mine. But she kept digging for details, trying to get me to trash talk them. I wasn't giving her that. Well, she said, I think you should know Sarah's really hurt. She didn't mean to exclude you. Didn't mean to? How do you accidentally leave someone out of their own life? I held back what I wanted to say and got off the call quickly. But I knew that wouldn't be the last of it. I was right. A couple days later, Sarah's fiancé's mom, Joyce, called. I always thought she was reasonable. Not that day. She jumped straight into yelling, "You've ruined everything! Do you know what you've done to Sarah and Lisa? This wedding was supposed to be perfect, and now they're scrambling because of you." I couldn't believe it. Someone who hasn't paid a cent was lecturing me for not funding a wedding I wasn't even included in. "Joyce," I said, keeping calm, "I didn't ruin anything. Sarah and Lisa did. I'm not paying for a wedding that I'm excluded from. If they want one, they can figure it out." She kept going, calling me selfish, saying I should have just gone along with it for Sarah's sake. Then she said the best part. She thought I should still attend the wedding for appearances. Yeah, right. "Look, Joyce," I said, "if you're so worried about the wedding, you can pay for it. I'm done." She mumbled something and hung up. Fine by me. Then, about a week after they moved out, Sarah finally reached out, through text. That irritated. After everything, she couldn't even call. Just a brief message. "I'm really disappointed in how you handled things. I thought you'd be more understanding." Understanding? I stared at that text for a while. I supported her for a decade, paid for school, her car, and almost her entire wedding. And she thought I needed to be more understanding? I replied, "I'm disappointed too, Sarah. But I've done enough. I'm not paying for a wedding I'm not part of. Good luck with everything." She never responded. No apology, no explanation, nothing. And I won't lie, that hurt more than I expected. Not because I needed her to beg, but because I hoped she'd realize what she'd done. She didn't. After that, everything went quiet again. No more calls, no more texts. It was like they erased me completely. Maybe that was for the best. Still, even after the chaos ended, it felt like I was mourning something. 10 years of my life, and suddenly it was gone. Lisa, Sarah, the future I thought we were building. All of it was just over. Still, I slowly slipped back into my routine. Work kept me occupied, and I started reconnecting with old friends. It felt strange at first not having Lisa around, but eventually I began to feel like myself again. I realized how much energy I had poured into keeping that relationship alive, even when it was obvious I wasn't getting anything in return. One night I ran into Jake, the friend who hadn't even been invited to the wedding. I told him everything. He shook his head and laughed. "Man, you dodged a bullet," he said. "If they couldn't respect you now, imagine how things would have been later." And he was right. I'd spent so long trying to make things work with Lisa and Sarah, hoping that one day they'd appreciate me, but that day was never coming. Honestly, I'm better off without them. So that's where things ended. I haven't heard anything about the wedding since, and I don't really care to. They made their choices, and I made mine. I'm moving on, and it feels good not to be wrapped up in their chaos anymore. If there's anything I learned, it's that you can't force people to respect you. If they don't value you, they never will. And that's okay. I'm done trying to prove myself to people who never cared. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a quiet night ahead. No wedding drama, no family tension, just peace. A couple of weeks later, once everything settled, I adjusted to my new routine. Life was calmer, far less stressful. I had the house to myself again, and for the first time in years, it felt like my home. I thought the drama was finally behind me, but of course, it wasn't. I should have known better. It started on a random Thursday afternoon. I was at work, when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I ignore those, but for some reason, I answered. And guess who it was? David, the biological father. I hadn't spoken to him in years. And suddenly he's calling me out of nowhere. At first, I didn't even know what to say. I half expected an apology or some explanation, but instead, he jumped right in like we were old friends. "Hey man, I need to talk to you about something important," he said casually. I'm thinking, what does this guy want? But I kept my cool. "Okay, what's going on?" Then he dropped the wildest thing I'd heard. He said Sarah and Lisa told him I had overreacted by pulling out of the wedding. Overreacted. This man, who had barely been present in Sarah's life, somehow had the nerve to tell me I was the one in the wrong. He said I should have just let it go, that I should have been the bigger person for Sarah's sake. I was furious. Here he was, swooping in at the last minute, trying to play dad, telling me how I should have handled everything. The same person who disappeared while I was the one supporting her every day, financially, emotionally, everything. It was unbelievable, but it got worse. After lecturing me, he revealed why he really called. Apparently, Sarah and her fiancé were struggling to cover the wedding expenses after I pulled out, and David wanted me to help out again. He actually asked me to contribute money for a wedding I wasn't even invited to. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not to be rude, but because the whole thing was insane. He genuinely thought I'd just hand over my money after they pushed me aside? "No, David," I said, still trying not to laugh. "I'm not giving you a dime. You all made your choices. If you want to act like the dad, go ahead and pay for the wedding yourself." There was a long silence. Then he sighed and said, "Come on, man. We're family. This is for Sarah's happiness." That hit a nerve. Family? I spent 10 years trying to build something with Sarah and Lisa. Now he wants to call us family because it benefits him? "We're not family," I said, more firmly than I intended. "You haven't been around, period. You don't get to use that word now. If you care so much, you figure it out. I'm done," and I hung up. I wasn't proud of how harsh I sounded, but I didn't care. I was finished being the nice guy. The whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth. It wasn't just David calling. It was the fact that Sarah and Lisa were still trying to use me, even after I stepped away. I couldn't believe they'd send him to try to get money out of me. But of course, that wasn't the end. A few days later, Sarah called. She hadn't spoken to me since everything happened, so I assumed something serious was going on. Part of me hoped she might apologize. Foolish, I know. I answered, and before I could speak, she started yelling. "Why are you making this harder? Do you know how much stress you've caused? You should have just gone along with it. Why couldn't you be supportive?" I stood there in shock, listening to her twist the entire situation. "Sarah," I said, trying to stay composed, "I was supportive. For 10 years, I paid for school, your car, everything. But I'm not paying for a wedding I'm excluded from." She didn't care. She kept accusing me of ruining things, calling me selfish. Me, the one who had been there for her every step of the way. Suddenly, I was the villain because I said no one time. That's when it hit me. This wasn't the same Sarah I helped raise. She'd turned into someone who saw me only as a resource. As long as I paid, I mattered. The moment I stopped, I was disposable. It hurt, but I accepted it. There was no point arguing with her. I had already won by walking away. "Sarah," I said, steadying my voice, "you made your choices. I've made mine. I wish you both the best, but I'm done. You're on your own." She hung up without another word. After that, I knew I had to close this chapter completely. I wasn't going to be the backup plan they ran to whenever things fell apart. I deserved better. So I focused on my job, my friends, my life, and it felt good. Sometimes you have to walk away from people who don't see your value. But of course, the drama didn't stop there. A few weeks later, I came home to a letter in the mailbox. No return address, just my name. I already knew it wasn't good. It was from Lisa. She started the letter by pretending to be understanding, saying she knew why I pulled out, but that I'd left them scrambling. She said I should have respected Sarah's feelings and helped out for old time's sake. Then she tried to guilt-trip me by saying Sarah was struggling with depression because I cut contact. She wrote, "She's been really down since you shut her out. Maybe if you talk to her, things could improve." I didn't believe it, but it still hit me. A part of me wanted to help. I'd raised Sarah for a decade. But I knew if I went back, it would be the same pattern. Me giving, them taking. So I threw the letter away. Still, it lingered in my mind. What if she really was struggling? But then I remembered everything she'd done. Cutting me out of the wedding, replacing me with David. This wasn't mine to fix anymore. A couple of weeks later, Jake called and invited me to a barbecue, said he had news. When I got there, I could tell something was up. Eventually, Jake pulled me aside. "Dude, you're not going to believe this," he said with a grin. "Sarah's wedding got canceled." I nearly spit out my drink. "What? Canceled completely?" He nodded. Apparently, there had been a big blow-up between Sarah and her fiancé's family. Sarah and Lisa had pushed for an even bigger wedding, and when they couldn't afford it without my money, they pressured his parents. That didn't go well, and eventually, everything fell apart. Part of me wanted to message her, but I stopped myself. Getting involved would only drag me back into their chaos, and honestly, after everything they put me through, I didn't owe them anything.